Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to my 8th anniversary on Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Man, it seems like only yesterday when I began this YouTube blog series back in September 2013, starting with the Friday the 13th films that I've seen at the time. But now that I think about it, since I did do a full blog on the 2009 film back in 2017, I should someday do a full blog of the crossover movie from 2003. But, however, for today's episode, why don't I look back at a Sofia the First episode that coincidentally aired on the exact same day when Mustang Prince Orro Reports began. So, airing on television on September 13th, 2013, this is The Amulet and the Anthem. So, let's get started. In this episode, Princess Sofia is chosen to sing the enchanting anthem at the annual Harvest Festival. However, as a response to her being boastful and bragging to Ruby and Jade, her amulet puts a curse on her, causing her to croak like a frog. So, Sofia must find a way to break her curse before her big performance. So, what are my thoughts on this episode? Well, in my opinion, this episode was very, very serious. And it also gave a very important lesson. And yes, I enjoy this episode as well. But to further explain why I enjoyed this episode, let's move on to Mustang Notes. Now, the moral of this episode is actions speak louder than words, especially when it comes to setting things right, which, believe it or not, I've been living by ever since the early 2000s, even though my parents don't really believe in this lesson, and they think it's better when I use words. Also, this is the first episode where Princess Sofia's amulet unleashes a curse whenever its wearer does a bad deed. After this episode, the amulet curses Amber by summoning Princess Ivy when she stole the amulet in the Curse of Princess Ivy, and later, Sofia was cursed to be small when she disobeyed her mom and let wee sprites into her castle. Now, the reason why I think this episode is a serious one is because after I saw it online, it gave me the incentive not to gloat, brag, or be boastful, vain, or arrogant. Besides, if I were chosen to do something extremely special, I would rather share my experience with my friends instead of bragging about it. Anyway, what are my thoughts on the animation? Well, to me, Toei on CGI animation for this show is still flawless, and I think the setting at the Harvest Festival looks pretty good. In fact, it almost reminds me of the Village Fair from Blue Ribbon Bunny or the Highland Hootenanny from Sofia II. But I'll get to that episode next year, I promise. Also, I thought the funniest part of this episode is when Amber shows a sign of rhinophobia, or a fear of frogs, while Sofia was picking out a dress for her performance. Plus, Amber mentions that she's also afraid of failures and not being popular, which in my opinion is not only silly, but it's also irrational. Now let's talk about the songs. And just to let everybody know, this is the second episode in the show to feature 2 songs. The previous episode being Just One of the Princes, which I blogged about 6 months ago. The first song is Make It Right, sung by Princess Belle from Beauty and the Beast. This song is where Belle teaches Sofia how to make things right by actions and not only words to break her croaking curse. Now, this is another one of my favorite songs in Sofia's show, and not only do I like the song's message, but I like the part where Belle shows a vision from the Human Again song, which was originally a deleted song, but was later restored for the 2002 special edition. Plus, I thought Sofia's verses were absolutely very sweet, and her croaking during the song kind of makes me chuckle a little. The second song to talk about is the Enchantian Anthem, which I like to consider the main song for this episode. You see, the Enchantia Anthem is the national anthem of the Kingdom of Enchantia, kind of like how the Star Spangled Banner is for us in the United States. Anyway, while it is briefly sung a couple times, it is mainly sung by Ruby and Jade during the episode's ending. And in my opinion, this song has a very patriotic or English feel. In fact, it bears a bit of similarities to other songs like America the Beautiful, the Soldier's Song, March on Bahamaland, and Hail to Bermuda. Also, I like when the lyrics mention places like the Ever Golden Glades and the Blazing Palisades, now known as the Misty Palisades, which were later shown in episodes like King for a Day, The Curse of Princess Ivy, and The Tale of the Eternal Torch. And now, let's move on to the characters and the voice actors who brought him to life. Princess Sofia is voiced once again by Ariel Winter, whom has been young Kairi in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, Marina in Jake and the Neverland Pirates, a few of Thumper's sisters in Bambi 2, young Trixie in Speed Racer, Penny Peterson in Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and Smurf Lily in Smurfs the Lost Village. Now, this episode is where we first see Sofia being all vain, which in my eyes is very unlike her because normally Sofia is a sweet, generous, and helpful princess. However, while Sofia is under a croaking curse, she tries to figure out what happened and how to lift said curse. And after overhearing Amber boasting to her friends about the time when she sang the anthem a few years prior, Sofia realizes the real reason why she's cursed. She first tries apologizing to Ruby and Jade for gloating, but then, after meeting with Belle, Sofia breaks her curse by offering to let Ruby and Jade sing the anthem in her place, which to me was absolutely very touching. Also, I like that pretty pink dress that Sofia wears to the Harvest Festival, which in my opinion is a nice change of color. Next we come to Sofia's friends, Ruby and Jade, voiced by Isabella Akers and Diamond White. As usual, these two girls are really fun, and in my eyes, I feel sympathy for them due to them feeling bad while Sofia was going on and on about her being the anthem singer. Also, I think while Ruby and Jade sing the Enchantian anthem, I felt that they make wonderful singers together. Plus, I think this was a better song than that Royal Sleepover rap song they were doing during the big sleepover episode. Plus, after Sofia's curse was lifted, I thought it was sweet when Ruby and Jade invited Sofia to sing with them. Sofia's best friend Clover is voiced again by Wayne Brady, whom has been in Clifford's Really Big Movie, Stuart Little 3, and Food Fight. Anyway, in my eyes, Clover is still my favorite animal sidekick in this show, and I like when Clover tries to help Sofia lift her curse by retracing her steps and going over what she did. Also, there is a scene where Clover kind of mentions The Princess and the Frog and the Swan Princess, which I still wish was a Disney movie if it wasn't rejected. And I'm still curious, when is the 11th movie going to be released next year? Also, remember when I mentioned Amber's fear of frogs? Well, during that same moment where Sofia was choosing a dress for her performance, Clover brought in a bullfrog to scare Amber and Bailiwick. Cedric the Sorcerer is voiced again by Jess Harnell, aka Wacko Warner from the Animaniacs series. Now, this would have to be the very first episode where Cedric displays his true evil side rather than his bumbling silliness. You see, in this episode, while Sofia is cursed, Cedric sees it as another opportunity to steal her amulet, by taking advantage of Sofia's desperation and persuading her into giving him the amulet, but thankfully, Sofia declines due to her promise that she made to her dad to never take it off. The first new character to talk about is Luciano, voiced by Sonic the Hedgehog himself, Roger Craig Smith. Luciano is the announcer for the annual Enchantian Harvest Festival. Now, I kind of like this character mainly due to his Italian accent, but on the other hand, I don't really like him for spoiling Sofia with paparazzis, gifts, and interviews. Plus, I think he's mainly the reason why Sofia became so boastful. Heck, he even says, "This is no time for friends," which sounds kind of like mostly every talent agent these days. Finally, we come to the episode's guest princess, Belle, voiced by Julie Nathanson, who got to be Felicity in Richard Rich's The Trumpet of the Swan, Scarlet Turner in Elena of Avalor, and Crimson Widow in Avengers Assemble. Now, Belle is the third Disney princess to be summoned by Princess Elena via the Amulet of Avalor, following Cinderella and Jasmine. Ariel and Aurora were summoned after Belle, and for those who haven't been following me since 2013, I've already looked at the episodes the latter appeared in during my first season. Anyway, in my eyes, Belle's lesson that she teaches to Sofia about actions speaking louder than words when apologizing about her bragging was very, very important when it comes to friendship. Plus, I liked when Belle mentions her husband Prince Adam in his beast form, and when she tells Sofia about what he did in order to break his curse. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, the Amulet and the Anthem is a very serious episode in Sofia's show, and it's also a very important one to learn from, mainly due to its moral to not be boastful and not to brag about your success. Makes me glad that I don't do that after seeing this episode online. Princess Sofia was a decent main character, though I still didn't like her for gloating in front of Ruby and Jade. Also, Clover was a great supporting character, and I liked Belle's guest appearance. And I thought the two songs featured in this episode were really wonderful to listen to. As for my rating, I'll give this episode a 95% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to...
Sir, I must warn you something very important.
Really? What is it, computer?
Well, aside from your 31st birthday coming up next Monday, some strange enigma known as the COVID welder has been sighted while my censoring device was browsing through some news articles, and I've a feeling that you're on his hit list.
Oh, really? Well, that weirdo should know. Even though I have a booster shot coming up this holiday season, he won't be able to touch me while I'm fully vaccinated. And whatever he's up to, I'm sure I'll be able to handle it.
I absolutely know you can, sir.
In the meantime, computer, keep an eye on his plans and report back if anything happens.
Yes, sir.
As for everybody at home watching, be sure to join me for my next episode. Mustang Power.